The smell in our bedroom had a source. What I found on camera destroyed my family.
Sometimes catastrophe doesn't arrive with thunder and lightning, but with a smell. At first barely noticeable, almost ghostly, then becoming more and more intrusive and repulsive. A pungent, ammoniacal odor, seeping into the fabric of the curtains, the fibers of the carpet, the delicate silk of my blouses. I noticed it when I came home from work and couldn't figure it out. Did it smell like mice, old pipes, a leaking sewer line? But after 3 weeks of living in the house with Mark and his brother, there was no doubt left. It was urine. Alien, acrid, hostile. Mark and I had been together since our freshman year of college, and now, 6 years later, our dream of living together was finally coming true, though reality was far from the ideal. I graduated earlier, fulfilled my longtime dream, a 6-month trip across Europe, while Mark had to stay behind due to some retakes. I had nowhere to return to. My rented apartment was already taken, and he, with shining eyes, suggested, "Moving with us. You can stay with me and Liam until I finish up, and then we'll get our own place." Liam was pushing 30, and on the surface, he seemed like a perfectly pleasant, if somewhat reserved guy. He worked in IT, loved video games, and rarely left his room. Before I moved in, I made a point to ask about the cat over lunch. My Caesar, neutered, a well-mannered aristocrat, had been using a litter box since he was 2 months old and was a gentleman to the tips of his claws. Liam had an old dog with bad hips who physically couldn't climb the steep stairs to the second floor where Mark's and my room was. Liam assured me, shrugging, "Yeah, no problem. I'm a dog person, but I'm cool with cats. Just keep the litter box clean." I moved in full of hope. I brought with me not just suitcases and a cat, but a whole suitcase full of dreams about Mark's and my future life together. Those dreams began to sour rapidly, like milk in the heat. The smell grew stronger every day. It hung in the bedroom like an invisible phantom. I would wake up from it at night and realize with despair that I couldn't escape it. I found my things on the floor, t-shirts, jeans, once my favorite cashmere sweater, reeking of that same sharp alien wave. It wasn't the smell of cat urine. I knew that one inside and out. This was different, cruder, human, with distinct notes of something sick. "Mark, do you have any idea where this is coming from?" I'd ask, nearly crying from disgust and helplessness, on my way to the bathroom to wash another ruined item. Mark, sleepy and puzzled, would shrug. "Maybe a rat died under the floor. Or the pipes? We should call a plumber." We called a plumber. He poked around the utilities and threw up his hands. We rewashed every item in the house with vinegar, baking soda, and professional cleaners. We treated the carpets and the walls. We aired the place out for hours every day, even in winter. Useless. After a couple of days, the smell returned, even more brazen and distinct. 3 months, 10 weeks of a humiliating, nauseating secret that slowly ate away at my sanity. Stains appeared on my decorative pillows, inside my shoes, on my office chair. I became paranoid. I'd check the room before bed, put all my things away in the closet under lock and key, and rose at every rustle. I started doubting my own sanity. Was it me? Was I imagining things? One night I found Mark in the kitchen desperately trying to scrub a stain off my leather bag. In the lamplight, his face was gray with exhaustion and the same confusion that was consuming me. "I can't take this anymore, Alice. It's driving us crazy," he whispered. After another one of my breakdowns, as I was sobbing and gathering another batch of spoiled clothes into a bag, Liam came out of his room at the noise and with the air of an understanding psychologist suggested, "Alice, you sure it's not your cat? They say neutered cats sometimes mark new territory, stress from the move, and it's only on your stuff. I never find anything of mine." There was no gloating in his voice, just a poorly concealed logic. But I didn't believe him. I believed my cat. I knew him like I knew myself. Caesar would look at me with his emerald eyes, purr, rub against my legs, and I knew he couldn't. It was impossible. That same night, after Mark had left for his night shift, I set up a small, almost invisible camera in our bedroom. I paid rent. I had the right. Mark, though embarrassed, agreed. We need to find out finally. I needed proof, at any cost. The next day, I took off work, claiming a migraine, plugged in my headphones, and started the recording. My heart was pounding wildly. My palms were icy and damp. I was sure I'd catch him. Liam worked remotely and was often home alone. I fast-forwarded through the footage, watching as Mark and I got ready and left in the morning. The house fell silent. And then, about an hour after we'd left, he appeared in the frame. Liam. He walked into our bedroom not like a thief, but like he owned the place. First, he just stood there, looking around, his gaze sliding over our bed, over my things on the dresser, over the photos on the shelf. Then he walked over to the chair where a stack of my clean, freshly ironed clothes lay. He picked up my silk blouse, stroked the fabric, and a strange, pained smirk appeared on his face. Then he put the blouse back, turned to the chair, and did it. Calmly, methodically, almost ritually, with the focused look of a man performing an important mission. A grown, 25-year-old man. But that wasn't the end. I kept watching, numbed with horror. He didn't do it just once. He returned to our room 2 more times during the day. The second time, he walked purposefully around the room and urinated in my shoes in the closet. The third time, closer to evening, he walked around the entire room and sprayed liquid from a bottle onto the carpet on my side of the bed. This wasn't a spontaneous act. It was a calculated, systematic act of aggression, a war of attrition where I didn't even know who my enemy was. I stopped the recording. There was a metallic taste in my mouth. The world turned upside down, the ground shifting under my feet like the deck of a ship in a storm. It wasn't just disgusting. It was a violation of all conceivable and unconceivable boundaries, an act of silent, animalistic contempt that made my blood run cold. He wasn't just ruining my things. He was marking me, like territory, like his property. That same evening, silently, my hands shaking with rage and disgust, I packed 2 suitcases, put Caesar in this carrier, and we drove to my friend Kate's place. I didn't explain anything to Mark over the phone. I just sent him the video with a single message. I'm at Kate's. Deal with your brother. My job was to run, to survive. We didn't see Liam for years. He was the best man at our wedding, a huge, gut-wrenching concession to Mark's large family and my parents, who wanted a big traditional ceremony. I endured it, just as I endured his presence at Christmas dinners and family gatherings. We existed in the same space without intersecting, like 2 opposite magnetic poles. I learned not to look in his direction, not to accept even a glass of water from his hands. Mark understood and accepted my terms. Our home became our fortress, where Liam was not allowed. Until the pandemic hit. Liam, who worked in a sector hit hard by the lockdowns, first had his salary cut, and then he lost his job altogether. He couldn't afford the apartment he was renting and came to us with a humiliating request for temporary shelter. He's my brother, Alice, Mark told me one evening, avoiding my gaze, looking at the floor. He's in a desperate spot, just for a couple of months until he gets back on his feet. He pissed on my things, I exhaled, and the old familiar nausea rose in my throat. On my clothes, in our bedroom, while we were sleeping. He was 25, Mark, 25. This isn't some childish prank. It's a mental disorder. But family pressure is a terrible, relentless force. Mark's mother, Helen, called, her voice sweet and poisonous at the same time. Alice, honey, we're all human. We all make mistakes. He was young, stupid. He's changed. Other brothers called, mostly number 7 and 8. Their arguments were primitive and strong. But he's family. You're not going to leave him homeless at a time like this, are you? The phrase, "it wasn't your stuff he was pissing on," stuck in my throat like a prickly lump I couldn't swallow. I felt like I was going crazy, alone in my righteous, hard-earned anger. The world was once again trying to convince me that my boundaries were a whim and my sense of safety was a bargaining chip in a game called Family Ties. Mark, my Mark, who had been on my side back then, who had seen that video himself and had been just as shocked, began to cave under the pressure. He kept repeating, the job market is better for him here. Everything shut down in his city, and I have connections here. I can't abandon my brother in a situation like this. It was then, in a moment of complete despair, feeling the ground slip from under my feet, that I posted my story on a popular forum. It was a cry from the heart, an attempt to find some confirmation of my sanity from strangers. I didn't expect my post to blow up the internet, gather thousands of comments, or that some of Mark's brothers would stumble upon it. But they did. And all hell broke loose.
To understand the scale of the catastrophe, you had to understand the family I had married into. It wasn't a family, it was a mini-state with its own laws, hierarchy, and dark secrets. 10 brothers. A whole platoon. Brother number 1, military doctor, stern, authoritarian, with a drill bit gaze and an iron will. Married, 3 kids. His word in the family was often law, unchallenged by anyone. He looked down on everyone, especially the younger ones whom he considered immature. Brother number 2, surgeon. Cold, calculating, with a brilliant mind and a tongue as sharp as his scalpel. He could humiliate with one precisely thrown phrase, making anyone blush. His wife adored dogs and tolerated a bearded dragon. Brother number 3, engineer, seemed the most balanced and adequate, but his calm was deceptive. In childhood, he was a master of sophisticated, technical bullying that was hard to prove. Brother number 4, teacher and researcher. Ironic, sarcastic, his weapons were mockery, sarcasm, and public humiliation. He knew how to find the sorest spot and press on it. Brother number 5, IT guy, the most secretive and vindictive. A quiet one. He rarely got into open conflicts, but he was often the behind-the-scenes organizer of the bullying, a master of intrigue and setting up. Brother number 6, doctor. The only one who retained his humanity and common sense in this meat grinder. He consciously distanced himself from family dramas, preferring a quiet, orderly life. I had always felt sympathy and trust for him. Brother number 7, chef, businessman. A con man and pathological liar. For years, he deceived his parents, scamming large sums of money for a non-existent education and life in Europe, while actually partying in New York with friends. He made a fortune on lucky investments and returned as a successful restaurateur. Brother number 8, car salesman. Loud, intrusive, living in a world of gossip, showmanship, and superficial relationships. His house was full. Wife, 3 kids, a fish tank. Mark, brother number 9, my husband. Engineer. Kind, responsive, but weak-willed and torn by internal conflicts. Since childhood, he was torn between the desire to protect Liam and an animalistic fear of his older brothers. His love for me fought with the sense of family duty drilled into him over the years. Liam, brother number 10, the outcast, the scapegoat, the one on whom the older brothers vented their aggression, proved their superiority, and practiced their manipulation skills. His childhood was hell. Their father, now deceased, was a classic domestic tyrant, harsh, demanding, despising weakness. The mother, Helen, a tired woman with extinguished eyes, chose a survival strategy: not to see. Her models were, don't air your dirty laundry in public, all children are like children, and brothers must be friends. She hushed up, justified, forgave the older sons for everything, from stealing cars and knife fights to faking diplomas, just to maintain the appearance of a big, friendly family for the outside world. Liam, with his fragile, sensitive psyche, was an inconvenient problem for her, easier to ignore than to solve. The bullying Liam endured wasn't ordinary sibling rivalry. It was a deliberate system of humiliation. They locked him in the dark, damp basement overnight, scaring him with ghosts of sisters who died in infancy. They threw out his textbooks and notebooks. They forced him to eat off the floor, imitating a dog. The most common and favorite punishment was depriving him the opportunity to use the bathroom. They locked him in a room or closet for hours, and when he couldn't hold it anymore and relieved himself in the corner, they forced him to clean it up with his bare hands, and then laughed at him, calling him stinky and pig. This wasn't just cruelty. It was a system aimed at the complete destruction of human dignity, at erasing his personality. Mark was the only one who tried to protect him. He shielded him, took locks away from his brothers, secretly brought him food when he was denied dinner, and sat with him outside the locked door, whispering words of support. This protection made Liam emotionally dependent on Mark to the point of pathology. He saw him in not just a brother, but a savior, the only source of safety and love in a cruel world. Mark became his god. My appearance in Mark's life was a catastrophe of cosmic proportions for Liam. I was a threat to his fragile, sick world. I, a woman, was taking away his savior, his only friend, his reason for existence. His damaged psyche couldn't take it.
His hatred for me as a rival mixed with the repressed hatred for his mother who failed to protect him and poured out into that very savage, animalistic ritual, marking my things, like an animal marks its territory to drive out the intruder. To him, I wasn't a person, but abstraction, a threat.
After I fled, Mark, shocked and furious, cut off all contact with Liam for a while. But their mother, Helen, couldn't bear the rift in her perfect family. After a couple of years, she found a therapist. It turned out to be an old friend of Liam's who, for a substantial fee, agreed to imitate therapy sessions and write beautiful reports on his progress. After receiving a convincing report of recovery a couple of years later, she acted as a reconciler, convincing Mark that Liam had realized everything, undergone treatment, and changed dramatically. That's why Liam was the best man at our wedding. I agreed to this humiliation because I loved Mark madly and didn't want to deprive him of his brother, didn't want to be the one who breaks up the family. I thought time and distance would heal the wounds. I was stupid and naive. When the pandemic hit and Liam lost his job, this fragile, rotten construct collapsed. The family pressure hit me with renewed force. But he's family. Can't you forgive an old mistake? He's changed. You've seen it. Mark, always under the steamroller of family manipulation, began to doubt, to look for compromises. I felt betrayed, alone, and cornered again. It was at that moment that I wrote my post, and it acted as a detonator. Brother number 5, that same secretive schemer, was the first to stumble upon the story. He was furious, not because of what had happened, but because of the dirty laundry being aired in public. He called brother number 7, and they decided to look into it. Reading the story, they, being intelligent men, noticed glaring inconsistencies between my version and the one their mother had been feeding them for years. They contacted brother number 2, the surgeon, and he, with his characteristic thoroughness, contacted Helen. Under pressure from her sons, the truth about the fake therapist came out. Mark, enraged that he had been so cynically deceived yet again, got in his car and drove to Liam's for a final, decisive conversation. Liam didn't open the door, but Mark had a key for emergencies. Entering the apartment, he didn't see anything criminal at first. The usual mess of a single man, dirty dishes in the sink, dust, scattered belongings. It smelled of stale everyday life and something sour. He needed to use the bathroom, but the guest bathroom was locked from the inside. He went into his brother's bedroom, and that's when his world, already cracked, finally shattered into pieces. The walls of the room, from floor to ceiling, were covered in photographs. My photographs. Wedding photos, prints from social media, random shots probably taken with a hidden camera at family holidays, and photos of my brother number 1's 14-year-old daughter. The faces in the photographs were splattered with yellow, brownish stains. It was an altar to his hatred, perverted passion, and revenge. In the corner of the room stood my old sweater, which I thought I had lost, covered in the same stains. Mark recoiled in horror, knocking one of the frames with his shoulder. It fell to the floor with a clatter. At that moment, brother number 6 called him, just to check in. Mark, struggling for words, his voice breaking, described what he was seeing. Brother number 6, a doctor, a man of action, was horrified. Mark, get out of there right now. Don't touch anything. This is beyond jokes and domestic squabbles. This is dangerous. We're calling the others, right now. A real family storm erupted. The brothers, finally realizing the scale of the catastrophe they had largely created themselves, rushed to fix the situation. Brother number 1, learning that his minor daughter was involved, was furious and threatened to kill the freak. Brothers number 3, 4, and 8 dropped everything and flew across the country to help Mark and restore order. When they broke into the apartment, Liam was home. He wasn't expecting such a visit. A short, brutal fight ensued. It wasn't about retribution, but an attempt to subdue a madman. He fought back fiercely with screams and curses like a cornered animal. As a result, Liam, with a broken arm, a broken nose, and a concussion, was taken to the hospital and then transferred to a closed psychiatric ward for forced treatment and evaluation.
When the dust settled a bit, the brothers, using their connections and resources, conducted their own informal investigation. It turned out Liam hadn't been fired. He had quit so his escalating depression and odd behavior wouldn't be noticed at work. His treating psychiatrist in the hospital diagnosed him with severe borderline personality disorder, exacerbated by prolonged depressive psychosis. His hatred for women, the specialist concluded, was a direct consequence of the trauma of maternal rejection and a transference on all women of the image of the mother who had betrayed him. The photos of his niece were an act of symbolic revenge against brother number one, who had tormented him the most as a child, and his daughter was his extension, his most vulnerable spot. Helen, when cornered, confessed to everything. Yes, she knew the therapy was fake. Yes, she had been covering him for all these years, paying the fake therapist, because she felt a deep, all-consuming guilt for his broken childhood, for not protecting him, for not keeping him safe. Her grand idea of a close-knit family turned out to be a pathetic facade hiding years of systemic abuse, cruelty, and indifference.
Mark and I tried. We went to therapists, each to our own. We tried to talk, to support each other, to find footing in what was left. But an impassable shadow of his family lay between us, and an overwhelming, total sense of Mark's guilt. He'd say, I grew up in that shit. I breathed it. I was part of that system. I either participated or stayed silent. I bear responsibility. I don't want you to drown in it too, to have that filth splatter on you. You deserve clean air, a normal life. And I have to sort this out, alone. He asked for a divorce. I didn't argue. Too much had been broken. Too much poison had been poured into the foundation of our relationship. I didn't have the strength to fight anymore. A year has passed. I live alone with Caesar in a new, bright apartment I rented in a different part of the city. I changed jobs, found a place in a small design studio with a calm, creative atmosphere. I still see my therapist. PTSD is no joke and not just a figure of speech. The sound of water pouring into a toilet still makes me flinch and freeze for a few seconds, my heart pounding wildly. But now, I know how to cope with it. Sometimes brother number 6 calls me. He's become my friend, my link to that world I'm trying to leave behind. He tells me that Liam was transferred to a specialized, well-regarded clinic on the West Coast. His condition has stabilized on medication. He's engaging with the doctors, but the path to any semblance of a normal life will be long, if it's even possible. Mark and I are finally divorced. We sometimes write each other short, cautious messages, mostly about formalities. He's in therapy too. I know he sold that apartment, the place that once held both happiness and nightmare, and moved away. Seems like also out west, but to a different city. Sometimes, walking past our old favorite cafe, I catch myself missing him. But it's no longer a sharp, stabbing pain, just a quiet, familiar sadness, like an echo of a long-past storm. The other day, while doing a deep clean, I took that long-forgotten cardboard box down from the top shelf of the closet. Inside were 2 pairs of shoes. One pair, pretty but unremarkable pumps. The other, worn but comfortable sneakers. The first I'd ever bought with my own hard-earned money back in my junior year of college. They were a symbol of my independence, my growing up, my hopes. I looked at them for a long time. They were just things, pieces of leather and rubber. They weren't to blame for being defiled. Just as I wasn't to blame for Liam's madness, for the cruelty of his brothers, for the weakness of his mother. I was a victim, and I had a right to my pain, to my boundaries, and to my healing. I didn't put them on, but I didn't throw them away either. I just carefully placed them back in the box, closed the lid, and put it away. Maybe someday, when the scars have fully healed and stopped aching, I'll wear them again and walk in them into my new life. Or maybe I won't. And that, too, is a freedom. My own, hard-won right not to forget, but not to let the past dictate the rules of my present. I survived. I went through the hell of family madness, betrayal, and humiliation, and I remained myself. And my home finally smells only of me, of coffee, of fresh baking, and of the fur of my faithful Caesar, and nothing else.